To start off, we'll need to trace the shape of the blaster onto a note card. You only need the basic shape so you have some idea where to put the screws. It doesn't have to be very precise. Use a number 0 Phillips head screwdriver to open up the blaster. When you remove the screws, place them in the corresponding spots on the note card so you know where you got them from. The screwdriver tip can be magnetized by rubbing it on a magnet. This should make the screws come out easier. And remember to get the battery cover. Now that the gun is open, we can go ahead and remove the 2 screws that are holding the plunger tube in place. These can simply be put off to the side on the note card. Once those screws are out, you can remove the entire assembly. Pull out the plunger rod. Remove the O-ring. You can put that off to the side, we won't need it anymore for this mod. Also remove the plunger head screw. This is another thing that we won't need. Take off the plunger head. Remove the stock spring, that is not needed as well. Put the industrial spring included on instead. Take the 2 included replacement O-rings and stretch them onto the plunger head. If your plunger head is like the one I had and it's a 2-piece version, you can simply separate the plunger head and slip them right onto it. Snap the plunger head back together. Place it on the plunger rod and align it correctly. Take the included washer and place it on top of the plunger head. Do this as you insert the included screw. Thread the screw in slightly with your fingers. Once it is more stable, you can move on to the screwdriver. Thread the screw in entirely. It will make a hole into the hollow part of the plunger rod. If you have a standard 440 tapping bit available, I recommend you use it. Otherwise, it is fine just to go ahead and push it through manually. It just takes a little bit longer. Thread the screw in until it's flush with the washer. And there you go. Next, take the plunger tube and remove the barrel from the entire assembly. Place it on the side. Separate the middle piece. Remove the air restrictor and spring inside. Dispose of it. Snap the peg off of the middle piece. You won't need it. You have to push out the back piece with something if it's stuck in place. The plunger rod works, or any long enough object. If you have one of the versions of the Nite Finder with a glued together plunger tube assembly, use boiling water to loosen and separate the parts. Take a rotary tool, aka a Dremel, and use a small cutting bit or a small drill bit like I did to cut the supports on the back piece to cut out the center of it. I recommend you use pliers for improved safety. I just did it with my hands, but it is not the best idea. Proceed to do a similar process on the middle piece of the barrel assembly. Move on to a small sanding drum. You need to expand this out large enough so that the brass barrel can slide through it easily. You want to test fit it as you go along. Also, grind down the ridges remaining in the rear barrel piece just for consistency. You'll need to start grinding down the constriction at the back of the barrel itself. This is so that the drill bit we'll be using can slit in easily to hollow out the barrel, or expand it more so. I used a 9/16 drill bit to drill out the stock barrel. You could use a 17/32 one, but they are much more expensive and harder to find. A standard wood boring flat bit, as shown, will work just fine. I recommend you wear some thick work gloves while doing this for safety, and be very cautious. Test with the brass. It should slide in easily. I use a little bit of electrical tape to stabilize the barrel. Put the two pieces back onto the barrel and align everything correctly. A wire dart stop is included, but for demonstration I will show how to make one. Align the wire or paper clip with the rear piece and mark it just shorter than the inside diameter of the piece. Cut it with a wire cutter. With a hot glue gun, glue a ring around where the brass extends out of the stock barrel. Place the two other barrel pieces on that while it is still cooling. Make sure everything is positioned right. Hot glue the back of the back piece to fill in the dead space. Test fit everything in the shell as you go. If all is well, glue on the dart stop and clean up the excess glue with a hobby knife. Use a bead of hot glue on the catch to secure the included catch spring. This one is quite a bit stronger than the stock one, so you shouldn't have problems, or at least not as many problems, with the blaster misfiring. Using some Ace brand silicone grease or a similar lubricant, lubricate the plunger head. I recommend you use latex gloves while doing this to avoid a sticky mess. Be sure to add a dot for the center. I cut it out with scissors slowly so I could get the curvature of it, and I made it quite a bit smaller than where the line was, because it has to fit on the plunger head but not expand larger than the plunger head. And I used a hole punch in the center to make a hole so I could still access the screw without having to take this part off. If this piece is included in the kit, so all you'll need to do is peel it off and secure it to the plunger head. Once that's done and the blaster is lubricated, you can insert it back into the plunger tube. Make sure everything is aligned correctly when you put it back into the shell. This may take a little bit of trial and error, but you should be able to get it eventually. Replace the plunger tube screws to keep it secure. Make sure the end strike rail piece is in place. Add the top part of the shell back on. And to finish, you can begin placing the screws back into the shell in their corresponding places. Just don't forget to put the battery cover back on, because it looks a little bit strange without it. Okay, now that it's back together, we can go ahead and give it a test fire. Here I load a standard streamline dart, and it can shoot pretty much any half-inch micro-sized ammo, including Stefan's, and it shoots quite hard.